I didn't even know I was carrying it. For 30 years, I lived with it strapped to my back, silent, invisible, and relentless. It didn't make a sound, but it screamed at me every single day. I'm talking about trauma. The unspoken kind. The kind that doesn't just hide, it convinces you that it's not even there, until one day it's all you can see. This isn't a burden I chose to carry, and neither did you. But here we are, dragging it with us, from childhood to adulthood, from relationship to relationship, from heartbreak to breakdown, wondering why every step feels like we're walking through quicksand. If you're like me, you've spent years blaming yourself for not being strong enough to carry it all. You called yourself lazy, broken, unworthy. You told yourself everyone else is doing it, why can't I? But what if I told you the goal was never to carry it all? What if I told you that true strength is not in holding it, it's in learning to put it down? I was 30 years old when I realized that bag I'd been carrying my whole life wasn't even mine. It was packed for me, not with love, but with silence, fear, shame, and secrets. It was packed by childhood trauma, generational pain, toxic relationships, and unspoken truths that nobody ever prepared me for. And here's the wild part. I didn't just carry it, I lived in it. It became my home. I hung pictures on the walls. I told myself, this is just who I am. I rearranged the furniture of my own suffering, trying to make it more livable. But trauma is sneaky like that. It doesn't always announce itself. It wears disguises. It looks like perfectionism. It looks like procrastination. It looks like people-pleasing, self-sabotage, isolation, and addiction. Sometimes it even looks like success. We tell ourselves, I'm fine, look at all I'm doing. I'm fine. But deep down we know. We know because no matter how much we achieve, it never feels like enough. No promotion, no partner, no new city, no fresh start can quiet the nagging feeling that something still isn't right. I see it in other people now, in the friends who say, I'm just tired, when really they're drowning. In the men too proud to ask for help, in the women who laugh too loudly to keep from crying. I see it in my younger self, that girl who knew something was wrong but didn't have the words to name it. But I see her now, and I'm talking to her directly when I say this. You were never broken. You were just carrying too much that was never yours to begin with. Here's the truth nobody tells you about unpacking emotional baggage. It gets worse before it gets better. And I'm not here to sugarcoat it. This is not a just think positive speech. You can't vision board your way out of trauma. Trust me, I've tried. You can't put good vibes only on a coffee mug and call it healing. Unpacking means opening the bag. All of it. The heavy stuff, the sharp edges, the moldy, I never want to see this again stuff. It means touching things that you swore you buried forever. My bag cracked open after a suicide attempt. I was at the edge of my own life, staring into the abyss, and I thought, well, if I've got nothing left to lose, I might as well see what's inside. Spoiler alert, it wasn't pretty. It was not poetic. It wasn't the movie version of healing where you cry once and suddenly feel free. It was ugly, sobbing into the carpet at 3 a.m. It was screaming until my voice broke. It was crawling through every painful memory I'd ever buried and realizing it hadn't died. It had just been waiting for me to stop running. And there were days I wished I'd never opened it. Days I wanted to pack it all up again, duct tape it shut, and throw it in the ocean. But here's what I realized. The alternative was to keep carrying it, to let it poison my relationships, cloud my decisions, and tell me lies about who I was. And I refused to let it win. Here's what I know now. You are not weak for feeling heavy. You're not broken for being tired. You are not a failure because you're not over it yet. The world tells us that strong people carry it all in silence. They push through. They hustle harder. But I'm here to tell you something radical. Strength is not carrying it all. Strength is knowing when to let it go. And letting go, that doesn't mean be positive or just move on. It means courage. It means looking at your pain, swear in the face and saying, I see you. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Sometimes letting go looks like calling a friend and saying, I'm not okay. Sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's just sitting in your mess and letting yourself be a mess for a minute without rushing to clean it up. And honest, honest is where the healing happens. Not perfect, not pretty, honest. I didn't just survive my trauma. I rebuilt myself from it. I was a mother, a partner, and an upcoming writer, just trying to exist. Until all of that cracked open. I didn't just survive my trauma. I rebuilt myself from it. I was a mother, a partner, a writer, just trying to exist. Until all that cracked open. I had to leave my children for a time. And that was the hardest decision I've ever made. But I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't be alive to come back. Sometimes saving yourself means walking away. Sometimes saving yourself means walking away long enough to find your way back home. My journey took me from Ontario to Alberta, Spain, and finally Portugal, where I sat with plant medicine and faced every memory I had locked away. I went to places in my mind I didn't even know existed. And in the deepest, darkest part of myself, I found her, the girl I abandoned. She wasn't angry. She was waiting, patiently, waiting for me to say, "I'm sorry I left you here. Let's go home together." That moment changed everything for me. There's a truth you're not going to want to hear, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Nobody is coming to unpack your bag for you. Not your partner, not your therapist, not your parents, not me. People can walk with you. They can hold you while you cry, but they can't open it for you. Only you can do that. Here's the good news, though. You don't have to do it all at once. Start with one thing, one moment, one piece. It doesn't have to be the heaviest. It doesn't have to be the scariest. Just one, though. Because every time you pull something out of that bag, the weight shifts. It gets lighter. And every time it gets lighter, you prove to yourself that you can do hard things. Healing isn't about ripping everything open and dumping it on the floor. It's about gentle courage, the kind that whispers, "I'll try again tomorrow." So I'll leave you with this. If you're carrying a bag right now, one that feels like it's pulling you under, ask yourself, what's one thing I can unpack today? Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's finally saying, "I'm not okay." But whatever it is, I promise you this. Even the smallest act of unpacking is a victory. And every time you do it, you remind yourself that you're not just surviving, you're reclaiming. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're becoming. I used to think my story was just a sad one, but it's not. It's a human one, and so is yours. Trauma may have written the first chapters, but it doesn't get to write the ending. That pen is yours now. Pick it up. And don't just write a happy ending. Write a whole new story you deserve.